Okay, this is going to be a demonstration video for the details of the one point perspective drawings. So, right now we kind of like added some doors, windows, alleyways, changed up some of the sizes of the buildings. So, at this point now we can incorporate a little bit more details into the building. So, in order for us to do that though, my main suggestion is to, look at what other people have done before with a one-point perspective drawing. Just because, I typically tell you guys to use like real-life references to help you with aiding your drawings. But in this like specific case, though, drawing one-point perspective is very, very challenging. So, you do want to look at how other artists or how other people, draw one-point perspective in order to get like a better idea of like what those things are. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit close. And you guys have seen this, when we went over the warm-up for the day. Basically you want to look at like how people design the doors, the buildings, maybe some of the words too. But don't even be concerned about like that much of a detail yet. But there's like some billboards that stick out. Um, also like just different like textures or patterns that people do for like buildings. So you can do like straight lines or do like kind of like tic-tac-toe grids. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different methods with how you can create or design your buildings into more detail. And in some cases, you want to make it more personalized, where it's more of like a rough or rural area or somewhere that's rich. That you can add that a little bit of creativity to your cityscape drawings. All right, but I would just look at those to give you some ideas, and if you wanted to as well, you can also look at realistic pictures to give you some ideas. So I do have like some of these here, just to give you some other ideas on what you can draw. But I'm just gonna give you some suggestions that I would do in my drawing. So as we continue with your drawing. We're gonna add a little bit more detail to certain things. So maybe like this sign here, I might have it pop out a little bit more. So one way you can have it pop out, and again, I'm gonna look at some of these references I had before. I guess I could kind of do it like that way, where it's popping out in that direction. So in order to do that though, I'm just gonna draw another diagonal line here. So it's actually gonna pop out a little bit further on this side. So we're gonna draw a line here. Okay, and then since it's popping out in this direction here, we have to pop it out a little bit on the bottom as well. So we're going to pop this a little bit higher than where it's supposed to be. Okay, but you really do have to think carefully about like, how the perspective works. If you want to move the sign a little bit higher, then you have to move it up. If you have to move it down, you move down. In this case, we're going to move it up, but I'm going to erase this line here. And I'm going to create a new, we can have this go off the page a little bit. So, this is actually where like you have to be really, really creative, and you really have to think about the drawing in order for it to make sense and work. Otherwise, it's just not going to make sense, or it's not going to work out the way that you want it. And then in this case here, we got to. Using my diagonals a little off. It's okay though. It's okay. Okay, so now it's kind of popping out a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in just so you can see. And now we're getting into like the little details of the drawing. And this is going to go back up. And since it's going out this direction though, we have to like create some diagonal lines too. This is going to go up like this, and this is going to go up like this. Okay, and then we got to create another line here. So you really have to look at like how they did in their drawing, and try like mimicking yours. But this project's really about like trying to learn how the one-point perspective works, and just kind of experimenting and trying new things. So now these all should be like the same angle. It's obviously not going to look completely correct, but you just gotta try things out. So that's how you have like the sign that pops out a little bit more. Let me see. Oops, a little too bright. Let me tone it down a little. And then, one thing I like too is like these types of buildings where like a pattern is, like a tic-tac-toe pattern. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that too, or just have it being straight lines. Like for example, if I want to make this building in a tic-tac-toe grid, the way I would do that though is, you gotta make sure to go back to your vanishing point, and we're gonna create lines for that part. So I'm gonna do one line here, one line there. And again, I'm all going toward that vanishing point. You'll notice as I'm going down lower and lower that it's going to start to change the angle, especially as it gets closer and closer to that below the horizon line. So just bear that in mind. All these lines aren't the same. They're all going in different diagonal shapes. Alright. And this was what takes the most time with these one-point perspective drawings. You really have to think about each line or stroke that you're making in the artwork. My suggestion for like doing these kinds of lines is, do those for like the further away buildings. This is a nice little detail you can add to your picture if you. Oops. Just want to add some lines. So we just add some lines there. Now, one thing that's interesting though is, if you have like the side of the building showing here, not the diagonal parts. These actually go straight if you were to do it the correct way. Anything that has like alleyways or, you can actually see like the sides of the buildings. Those don't have to follow that rule of the perspective. So in this case here, I'm going to actually draw like another line. It's going to look a little awkward if I don't. I'm going to draw another one between here too. So. These lines can be straight though. These don't have to follow that rule. They're going to be straight, and with those other lines.